this one.
Thank you. Hi. I wanted to start by two notes related to the two last presentations. The first one about the hero, usually the male hero, and to make an announcement. Maybe not everyone notices, but our name has changed. It's not smart citizen male, because in Spanish, Ciudadano Inteligente is a male citizen. And I think this also has to do with the story about funding and sustainability I want to share with you later. It has to do with when the project was born, like almost 9 or 10 years ago. Next year is our anniversary. It was very obvious to name it Ciudadano Inteligente, and then we realized all the implications it had. And it had implications in terms of gender, but also in terms of a more patronizing and not so collective way. So some people felt offended, like, so you guys are the smart citizens and we don't. So we are kind of changing our name to smart citizenship, like in terms of this more collective name, and also in terms of understanding the gender issues that were behind something we didn't notice like 10 years ago. So I just wanted to explain it, and the official launch will be in November, but still we are already saying it out loud, and it was a female struggle inside of the organization, so we are very happy to have won. Okay. This is, the other way around. Yes. So I was asked to talk about smart funding, and I have like a question mark after it, because I don't know if it exists something as smart funding. And about our ongoing road towards sustainability, I also see this more in not like a short, what were the name you were saying? Like I'm not a marathon, but when you give something to the other person. Great, thank you. So I was asked to talk about this, and this connects also with what the last presentation was talking about in terms of institutionalization and the possibility to keep going and to work and to have, like, this might sound very micro level, like organizational stuff, and that's why I was talking about when he asked me, like, how do I present you? I'm a sociologist, but now I feel like an entrepreneur. And I look at spreadsheets and about, oh my God, I have to pay salaries until, so I ended up working in the sustainability team and in this kind of micro level things that you think, but this is so important, and I want to share our experience with you, and also to make a note on context. I work in Latin America, in Chile, and also in other countries, and the challenges that we face maybe are not so common with, I don't know, like the US or the European Union, but I think that increasingly they are becoming more common because of globalization and because the structures that govern us are the same. So I think it could be interesting for everyone. Yes, and just like a funny note, this is the logo of the Sustainability Unity, and it's actually one person. Sometimes we are 2 or 3. So it's not really an area, but it has a logo. Oh wait, something skipped behind. We don't see that. Wait, I don't know what is this. So, well, this is our mission, to strengthen democracies in Latin America, so that you know a bit of our organization. And I just wanted to show you our teams. We have an office now in Brazil, and this also has to do with our new ongoing challenges in terms of institutionalization. Having a new office can open up a lot of issues. And also we have the core office in Santiago de Chile, so I want to show you the team. This is the mission, but it's not so. So yes, smart funding. So how and when our road towards sustainability started, a bit of history. I think probably a small organization would start funding, and who does the funding, and it's all more about fundraising, and it's in the hands of the executive director. And we have to understand that this was a small NGO in Chile. Usually it's friends, like kind of a couple of friends. They are young. No, usually you don't have people contracted, or they don't have social benefits. And usually, and this is what the privilege side of this is, these people come from privileged backgrounds so that they can sustain doing this work. But when you want to grow up, when you want to be a Latin American organization, a regional organization, when you have to have offices in other countries, you have to change also the scale, and you also have to start thinking in terms of institutionalizing processes, protocols. You get after a few years, they started to notice, for instance, that some person was doing exactly the same job, and he got double paid, and usually it was a man and the other was a woman. So that kind of issues happen in organizations, and sometimes you don't have even the bad intention that it happens. So we were also forced in the good way, I will say, by some donors, because we had a lot of core funding. And that's a very, very good thing, and we were very happy about it, but it's also a curse. It's like you have core funding, you think you're like, oh, we have so much, but this is going to end. It's like the welfare state, you don't take care of it, it ends. And then what do? How do you pay the staff? So we were, and one of our core funding donors, he forces us to do a sustainability strategy and to start to make resources from our own, so that we generate resources in a way that we start to sell something or produce something outside the projects that had a funding. So I wanted to share with you some of the key challenges we were facing, I will say like 1.5, 2 years ago in terms of sustainability. Well, first, Chile is a high-income country. I don't know if you heard, and it's weird. We are not, but we are still will do. And it's also, we became members of the OECD, and I think probably Central Eastern countries share this Chilean problem too. So we are like the best or the higher income country in Latin America, but still we are very unequal. So I put this kind of glass that I think shows the feeling we have about being like this. And the problem of this is that now, instead of receiving funding, and it starts to be very tricky to have funding from international organizations and donors, we are supposed to be funding others. So it's a complicated issue, and in Chile at least, NGOs are disappearing. They have been disappearing since the recovery of democracy. This is also a paradox. When we had a dictatorship, civil society was flourishing. There was a lot to oppose to, and a lot of people wanting to oppose to that. Democracy came, we started to become rich, and nobody funded civil society anymore. There is also not a philanthropic culture like in the US or in Canada, so you can't run an NGO with a membership. And rich people are like, I don't know, like they are millionaires, they are in the Forbes rankings, but they don't donate. Like I found that one of the richest family negotiated to donate like $2,000 to a local council to build like a small program of women's education. Like $2,000, and I was like, I wouldn't receive them. Like it's too, and they wash the money saying we are so responsible. So there is not a culture of a philanthropic culture, and if there is, like with the mining companies, it's with a huge cost added. Like you can't do whatever you want to do with the money. So in that sense, this was a huge challenge because we were always like a regional organization, but based in Chile, and we did a lot of work in Chile. It was very Chile-centric and with a lot of success, I have to say. Like really, now our organization, if I want to be on television pointing to the government about something, I will be. Like we can do that, and they will listen. They are we are considered like a wow organization. But how do you finance that? It's very, very hard in this context. And so this also forced us to move, and it's also a good thing to go outside Chile and try to do other things other way. Well, another issue is that, and this I think, it has been said before, but our relationship with funders and donors, like to really say how much things cost. And core funding allows you to pay, for instance, for a house, for appearing in the news, for internet. We have a huge issue with the internet in our organization. It's amazing. We cannot connect well. And if we don't have core funding or not targeted resources, we cannot fix them. Like because projects and project funding is very strict. So also the sustainability strategy came from realizing that we were using core funding to fund projects. We were not having enough non-targeted resources. So in the end, we couldn't be fixing the internet, which is weird. So we are in 10 countries in Latin America doing a school of advocacy, but we cannot fix the internet. It's weird. Or we cannot pay when people are sick, like, you know, so it's also for other challenges why we started to think so. The other thing, and this is micro level, but it's very important, is the cash flow. Like I learned this thing being a sociologist later, and if you don't have cash flow, you cannot pay for the salaries. And this year, we didn't have money for December, the whole year. So it was so we could pay until November, December, no money, just at late in January, money will come in. And what do you do? Like you have 20 people working, do you say to them, I will pay you in January because, and we cannot get credit at the bank, like because you say, okay, we will ask for it, or we could, but it was tricky, and then the responsible person is the board, and the president of the board said, I don't know I want to have such a, because it's a huge amount of money. So what do you do? Like, so these kind of things that sound small are the core of the organization so that the organization can actually exist and defend rights or that kind of things that we actually want to do. And the famous idea that you should have 8 months flight autonomy, like I think this is a good goal to have. I think it's not maybe always possible. I know that many organizations don't have it and it's very challenging, but to start to think about it change a lot the way we work. To think like we really want that to be our objective. Maybe we will never reach it, but to point towards 6 months or 12 months, maybe 18 someday. And the new goals. This is the, I wanted to show you this because this was the presentation that the sustainability coordinator did to the team. Because, and I will tell you some of the challenges. One of the donors said you have to have $240,000 of self-generated resources after when the grant is over, like in 3 years. And it's a lot of money to generate. So they did this presentation to actually start to introduce to the team the challenges that we were facing because people didn't understand these things. Sometimes I talk with people and when you are not in the administrative side of things or the sustainability area, you don't think in these terms. So these 3 people that are going up are team members. And though we were trying to say, okay, we are here and we need 240,000. So how do we do it? Like maybe we have to stop doing some things to actually get to the goal. So what we learn? I think that if you want to start such a process, I don't know at what stage in your organization you are. I think in Latin America, and from what we mapped, and we have been talking with other people in our collective and movement, if you want to start such a change and establish a sustainability area in Chile, many organizations, some disappeared, others are doing this in other countries too. It's the cultural change. In our context, it's not obvious that an NGO can produce something and get money in return. Not even for profit, you get money to keep working. It's not in the culture. It's seen in a bit with the hero idea that you are being like a company. Why are you selling? These are also NGOs. And then you say, but because work, it has to be paid. You want to institutionalize. You want people to have careers. Usually in our NGO, people had a family or wanted to buy a house, they left. So we had like a rotation of people, and that's not sustainable. You cannot build an organization that will defend rights today and tomorrow, like what's happening now in Brazil, if that's the way you're going to work. But it's a huge cultural challenge. Like you have got a lot of resistance and people don't understand it. You have to explain it. And to explain it, you have to be transparent. You have to show where the money comes from, what does it mean to have a budget of $800,000 a year, but how is it expended and what do you need to survive? Because people usually don't know that the coffee they are drinking, if you multiply it by 30 people, it's a lot of money, or I don't know, the electricity bill, or where you actually are sitting. Like it's, that things are not obvious, and you usually in the NGO sector consider them like obvious. Involve the whole organization. Well, we serve different types of models of how to do it, and the organizations I saw that didn't do it with the whole organization can go into some terrible traps, like competition, or that people don't understand well. In our experience, to involve the whole organization was also necessary because one person cannot do this alone. Allocate resources to the task, so pay someone to do it, because if not, it will never get done. Map actors and opportunities, and understand and define the value of project. And this is the very economic side of it. You really have to know how much an hour it is a project. And we have a calculator now, and it sounds like very monetarized, but if you don't do it, you don't know even how to apply it to a grant. You do it wrong, and then you are subsidizing it, and in the end, you are still paying for it somehow. Somebody is doing it, so you stop doing other things. well, some people don't like the word impact, but measure something and communicate it. Usually we don't measure things, or we do know it, but we don't communicate it. And I think that's also a big, big challenge. And we've just started doing it. It takes a lot of work. Oh, sorry. Yes. So the last thing, what is going on now, we have a cross area called sustainability, unfortunately with one full-time person and an intern, but of course the executive director, me, and others are part of the team, but we are starting this 1 year ago. We have a sustainability strategy and plan that now it's again old, but you keep updating it. And I think that we have managed to find, and I can talk more later if you are interested, in an organizational structure that supports the area. We tried different models and we're still trying. We haven't found the right one. And a transition in terms of for the administration, people, the managing, and the team. So it's a huge change. And finally, the good side is I see in this model more possibilities to scale the impact in our region. Like we had this project, the Smart Vote, that was born in Chile, and it has like 7 or 10 versions. It's now really getting to other countries because of our partnerships and this idea of, you want to do it this place, let's do it together. So now we will have one in Ecuador. We did it in Brazil. So I really think that this is also a possibility of growth. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for the question side. I picked at the Slido thing, and I will start with the first question listed there, the one posed by Mika. Have you considered a membership model for sustaining the organization?
Yes, we have, and unfortunately, in our context, people don't have the money usually, and not the amount of money, then the millions you will require of people donating even a small size to make it sustainable. We did some studies, and the problem was that it was more expensive to have the team running the campaign than actually what we received, because really the philanthropic culture in Latin America is scarce, and also really in other countries, like imagine Bolivia, $1 is no way. So we have considered, but that's why we haven't implemented yet. We're still looking at it.
So I think we can connect this one with the other one. What is the size and age of your organization?
Yeah, so it's a 10-year, next year we will be 10-year-old. It started with 5 people, 3, 5, it was more informal. Today, it's 15 people in Chile, full-time, with contracts, social things, etc. And in Brazil, it's 5, but not like 3 are full-time, and they are like in different conditions. So that's the size. But sometimes we have 10 interns or volunteers. So it's very flexible, but now it's like we're around 20.
So because this is the Code for All Global Summit, somebody's asking, would you be open to sharing the sustainability plan and process of defining with other organizations in the Code for All?
Yes, of course, we are. Like we did it in the Argentinian Open Data Latin America. We did a workshop, and there was someone from Omidyar there, and it was very good. And we realized that we were at least in that ecosystem of organizations, like doing things that other people weren't. So we said, wow, there is something here we can contribute. So yes, of course.
Okay, so as your organization evolves and aims for sustainability, they changed the question. Are there projects you are retiring? I mean, in this, of course you are, but tell us a bit more about this.
That's a terrible thing to do. Like one of the main, well, now it's interesting because all of these changes also have to do with the changes in the executive direction. So we have now a new executive direction. She's a woman also, first time. And she actually has now more, I think, possibilities of stop doing things, because you get in love with the things you do. You really want to keep doing it eternally, but you have to see how do you do it in terms of a funding strategy. So we are also now trying to find some people from other organizations that may be more attuned to a project to take it on board. And in some cases, we have to stop just doing some things and to do others. So yes, it's very tricky and it's very hard.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were some challenges and lessons you learned from opening up information and conversations around salaries within the organization and funding externally? So, because you said that people were not aware of this, you know, that things cost money.
Well, for me, it was a very good process. It was funny because this was a complete, like there was no information about it. And of course, because we work with activists, what they did was to publish themselves their salaries in a sheet. So eventually, everyone knew the salaries anyway. So, and I didn't agree personally on not having this transparent, but the board, and there were some kind of conflict. And we didn't open up the salaries from person to person because it's complicated, but we did like a scale and show people where you are, and this is the scale you are. But at least in my opinion, since we opened up the finances and started to explain, all this made sense, and people completely changed their attitude. So to us, we have one person from each project. They have a representative for sustainability. So if I have to apply to a funding for Smart Vote, I go to him or her, and she works with me and with the sustainability person. Before, to tell them that, it was like, why do I have to do this? And eventually they did it, but not now. Everyone is like, oh my God, we are not getting to December. I will apply to this fund. Like, people understand and start to understand what things cost. For instance, Uber trips. Like the person of administration and finances said, guys, we are spending like a lot of money on Uber trips. Like, why? And then they changed their attitude, the way, but in the beginning, like, people just took Ubers. And they didn't see like they sum up. So I think it was difficult.
Yeah.
Awareness, yeah.
Going back to the membership question, Jakub is saying, if you don't ask for help, it's hard to get it. Would you consider minimum launch of a membership model just to see if people commit on their own? Have you tested? Have you tried?
We will do that. At the moment, what we want to do at least is to have the possibility to donate online. And first, we will not do anything and see what happens. So maybe something happens, we don't know, because we have a good base of a community in Facebook, and we are one of the best known NGOs in Chile, at least in Chile, and we are now going to Latin America in terms of followers and all that. Like, the communication team has done a great job. So first we will do nothing, and then we will do campaigns only online, trying to use as least resources as possible, and maybe something will come. I know from others that have done it, and they have no results. But I think maybe we will get something because we have a lot of followers, and that's a difference. We are more people, young people follow us a lot, and they know us. So maybe it will be a different result. We don't know yet.
But yeah, how do you convert them into members?
That's what we want to see.
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
Because you have the mass appeal, but
yeah,
will it blend? Struggling with funding also creates burnout, because we were talking about this elephant in the room. How do you keep the energy and motivation up? Could you share some tips?
Yeah. Well, our organization, and here I have to confess that when I arrived, for me it was difficult to understand it. I come from the academic background, and people were very cold, and the emotional things were like, oh. So like I was like, but I realized that one of the ways that this organization sustain itself is through a magic in the team. So people really like to work there. Still, I believe that when I came and with other people, we started a huge amount of protocol creation, and to stop the culture of the more you work, the better. And that was also ingrained, and it's still there, and it's behind a very competitive way and insecure, like, oh, he's working more, what will happen to me, etc. But the new director, and I'm very happy about that, she has go with this new culture. So for instance, if you work on a weekend, you take a day off in the week. We have more holidays than the usual NGO has, and we are forcing people to do it. Like, if you don't do it, like, then you will be hired, because also it creates an atmosphere, and it puts the level of work here. So then if I start emailing people at 5 a.m. because I'm a workaholic, I put everyone on pressure. So we are not saying people, this is good. We are saying, don't do that. I think, but it's very hard, very, very hard, because this is very ingrained in the culture, and it takes time. Also, the people trust you. They are like, you're not really saying that. I have to do it because not you're going to be angry, you know? So it depends. I really think that in this case, and the leader, like the executive director, has the main responsibility, because even I'm the deputy director. If I say that and the executive director contradicts it, so the last person in the hierarchy, if she or he doesn't have this culture or ethic, it's very hard to fight it.
Yeah, of course, it takes time to unlearn these bad habits. So yeah. Okay. Do you have advice on how to do budgeting in a flat organization?
yes, you can do, like we are a very flat organization, and actually each project does their own budgeting for their project with assistance of the administration and coordination. And they have learned a lot about doing it. So it takes time, but that's the problem. Like you need to, this person has to go through all the teams, and it takes a lot of time because they have to do a lot of iteration, like go back and go again. But we haven't had a problem with that, like the doing of the, and actually the budgeting was done through a survey too. So the intern went to all the projects and all people and asked, and we found a way to measure hours and tasks that was like because some people tell you 3 months, the other says 1 week. So then then you see the two of them, okay, 3 months or 1 week. And then that's the way you do it. It takes a lot of time.
There's something going on while we're talking. I don't know if you have noticed the highlighted question. So basically, if we keep talking for a couple of more minutes, you will start having some members in your
that's the recipe. I have to go all over the world.
He's been giving $5 per month to my society for a very long time. So if you put up a way to make a small recurring donation on your site, I'll do it. Anyone else?
Thank you. I will send you when we have the donor, but it's a bureaucratic issue we have now, but we will do it.
Do we still have time for another question? Maybe. Do we have another question? What about selling some Benito and Lula merchandise? What? Jakub again. I think you guys should talk a bit in the break. He says he agrees with Mika. Let your community surprise you. I will commit to. And it's happened to me also. I just put up a PayPal button, and then the first guy who ever donated us some money. Now we basically took over his house, and we have our headquarters there. So, okay, I think that's it. The time is up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions.